Joining us from Bridgewater, New Jersey, NBC News White House correspondent Kristen Welker. Kristen, good morning. Moments ago, Attorney General Jeff Sessions responded to President Trump's comments about the deadly Charlottesville protests. What did the Attorney General have to say?
Hi, good morning, Willie. Well, his comments come as, of course, there's mounting pressure on President Trump to publicly and explicitly denounce the white supremacists at the root of the violent clashes in Virginia over the weekend. He failed to do that this weekend, and that sparked a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. So his Attorney General out today, including on the Today Show, defending the president, saying his initial statement was forceful and making it very clear that the Justice Department is going to investigate and get to the bottom of exactly what happened. Here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
Well, he made a very strong statement that directly contradicted the ideology of hatred, violence, bigotry, racism, white supremacy. Those things must be condemned in this country. They're totally unacceptable. And you can be sure that this Department of Justice in his administration is going to take the most vigorous action to protect the right of people like Heather Heyer to protest against racism and bigotry. We're going to protect the right to assemble and march, and we're going to prosecute anybody to the full extent of the law that violates their ability to do so. You can be sure of that.
Willie, also worth noting that he was pressed on whether President Trump apologized for publicly shaming him in recent weeks. He said that the president hasn't apologized and the president has the right to be critical of members of his own cabinet. But back to the issue of Virginia. Initially, President Trump had signaled that he might hold a news conference today to address a range of topics. That was last week before the Virginia clashes happened over the weekend. We're now being told there's not going to be a full press conference, but it is likely the president will be open to answering some shouted questions potentially throughout the day by reporters, and he's expecting to get a lot of questions about Virginia. Willie.
We'll see if he goes any further today. NBC's Kristen Welker in New Jersey. Kristen, thank you. Joining us now from Cartagena, Colombia, traveling with the Vice President, NBC News national correspondent Peter Alexander with a lovely backdrop. Peter, you spoke exclusively with the Vice President. Good morning.
Hey, Willie, good morning to you from here in Cartagena, Colombia. We traveled down here to Latin America, the first of 4 stops for the Vice President yesterday, and then had a chance to speak to him exclusively last night, where the Vice President did what a lot of the president's critics say he should have done. Vice President Pence condemning white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and other groups of that kind. So I began our conversation by asking him why the president won't call out those evil groups by their name.
President Trump yesterday stated clearly that he condemns hate and violence in all of its forms. We will not tolerate hatred and violence of groups like white supremacists, the KKK, and the neo-Nazis. These extremist fringe groups have no place in the American debate. But you say we condemn them in the strongest possible terms.
You say that. Why won't the president use those same words? And why hasn't he?
I think the American people heard the president yesterday speak plainly and condemn, in his words, in the strongest possible terms, organizations that purvey hate and violence. I think the American people heard him, but what they also heard, Peter, was a president calling for national unity.
To be fair, some Americans heard that, others didn't, including Orrin Hatch, who wrote, "We should call evil by its name. My brother didn't give his life fighting Hitler for Nazi ideas to go unchallenged here at home." Was it a mistake for the president not to be more clear when he made those remarks? And if you were advising him now, would you suggest he do it differently?
I think the president yesterday spoke into a national moment, words that the American people needed to hear, that we condemn acts of violence, acts of hatred.
He said on many sides. Name those sides. What are the sides?
Well, look, as I said today, we condemn in the strongest terms the hate and violence advocated by groups like white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and their ilk.
But that's one side. What's the other side when he says on many sides?
Well, as you look throughout the course of recent years, we've seen protests turn violent. We've seen fringe groups use peaceful protest environment to bring violence, in some cases, against police officers.
But only one group yesterday, with respect, with only one group yesterday, Mr. Vice President, killed an American.
And we're bringing the full weight of the federal government to bear on investigating and prosecuting that individual for that heinous act that took the life of that innocent woman. I will tell you, Peter, that I take issue with the fact that many in the media are spending more time criticizing how the president addressed the issue.
But this is Orrin Hatch and Cory Gardner, sir. It's not me. I'm reading their quotes.
Many in the media have spent an awful lot of time focusing on what the president said and criticisms of what the president said, instead of criticizing those who brought that hatred and violence to the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia.
And at the end of our exclusive conversation, I asked Vice President Pence if this was an act of domestic terrorism. He said it may well have been, saying the administration is now exploring that, noting that the president has directed the Department of Justice to initiate a full investigation into an attack, Willie, that he said was eerily reminiscent of so many other terrorist attacks around the world.
Wow, some pretty extraordinary moments in there. Nice job. NBC's Peter Alexander. Peter, thanks. Before we go here, Rick, just the reaction to the strained interview that the Vice President of the United States just gave Peter Alexander, and trying to shift the focus to the media's reaction to the president instead of what the content of what the president did not say.
What's unbelievable, Mr. Vice President, when was the last time that peaceful protesters showed up in full body armor with shields and clubs to obviously beat people? I don't remember Dr. King doing that. And so it's just these denials to keep going on, and I'll quote the mayor of Charlottesville: when you dance with the devil has an influence on you, not the other way around.
Do you believe those are the views of Vice President Pence?
I don't. I think he is trying to thread a needle, but I'm tired of it. I'll tell you who could benefit the most right now is the Attorney General could go out and hold his press conference and usurp the president and be very aggressive about an investigation, a civil rights investigation into what happened in Charlottesville. He would do himself a huge political favor.
There is a Justice Department investigation in concert with the FBI.
I've been critical of Jeff Sessions. He was actually good, at least the clip we saw on the Today Show, and I hope he follows through. To put Pence in context for one moment, Pence got lied to by Mike Flynn, and the president said they would have kept Flynn, but he lied to Pence. Pence was told when the Comey firing took place, it was because of a variety and accumulation of things in terms of performance. He went out and said that. The president came back the next day and said, well, it was all about Russia. Donald J. Trump Jr. had his statement written by the president. The president said it didn't happen. His staff said it didn't happen. He comes back and says, well, he did what any father would do. Pence has been lied to multiple times in this administration. And I appreciate, to your point, Willie, the first part of what he said, which looks like he was running, if something happens to this president, running for re-election himself in 2020. Then he realized he had to be accepted back in the country, so he defended the president. Thank you to Governor McAuliffe for his strong words, and I hope General Kelly, the hope that many in this set have and the country have for you running not only the staff, but helping the staff manage this president. I hope his voice becomes more powerful and more prevalent in the coming days.
You could see the pain on Pence's face. You could see it, where you feel it.
And it would also, to me, just shows a lack of a grasp of the significance and the importance of the president coming out and speaking in a moment like that, when they say you're too fixated on what the president said instead of the people who acted the way they had. First of all, we're totally focused on the people who killed Heather Heyer in Charlottesville, Virginia on Saturday, but also it's critical that the president be the leader that the country needs in a moment like that.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.